So in a show of our commitment to plurality, to recognizing that there are many different paths to spirituality and to truth and meaning, on this holy day of May 4th, I will be preaching on Star Wars and not my beloved Star Trek. Because, somebody said break the binary, because may the 4th be with you. And also with me, thank you. And because we know that not everything will resonate with everyone here, and as we said during our new member ceremony, I'll sing your hymn and you'll sing mine. And so for you Star Wars fans out there, today we are singing your hymn, an exegesis of the sacred text of the Holy Gospel of George Lucas. Something that is beloved by many of you, and to others, well, you've heard of it. Fear not, those of you who are not Star Wars fans, I promise there is something for you here too. You see, I did a lot of research to prepare. I watched all 11 movies, the entirety of The Mandalorian, and the first season of Andor. Side note, Andor's so good, right? I contemplated staying up last night all night to catch up on Andor, and subsequently preach to you about it, right? There's a lot there. But I thought the better of it. Anyhow, that's as far as I got. There are still countless shows I could have absorbed myself in, but as they say, you can still get something from the Bible even if you haven't read the whole thing. Okay, they don't really say that, but they should. Anyhow, is there anyone here who hasn't seen any Star Wars? Nice. Okay, congratulations. Okay. Anyone online who hasn't seen any Star Wars? Don't know. Maybe. Just curious. Mara, yes, I know you haven't seen Star Wars. You've seen Young Jedi? Yeah. Okay, so those of you, I'm going to look at you, Claire, who hasn't seen any Star Wars. What do you know about it? Can you name anything about it? Okay, which characters do you know? Han Solo, Luke, and Darth Vader. Okay, that's the one I was hoping for. Okay, great. So what do you know about Darth Vader? You didn't realize I can't ask her because she's my wife, and she read the whole sermon beforehand to make sure it would make sense to people who didn't watch Star Wars. So he's the bad guy. That's right. Darth Vader is the bad guy, the villain. I've always found it funny that one of the most iconic people in all of Star Wars is the villain. Surely it's in part because of his iconic costume. His helmet is one of the most well-known images associated with Star Wars, right up there with Yoda and the lightsaber. The way he breathes. I don't think I can do it, but I'm trying. The fact that he's voiced by James Earl Jones, and then there's his theme song. Will you sing it with me? Dun, 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 dun. Well done. And of course, the reveal that he's the protagonist, Luke Skywalker's father. Spoilers! In a forever memorialized line of one of the most famous movie quotes of all time, Luke, I am your father, though we know it wasn't that verbatim. It was actually, no, I am your father. But I think there's something deeper there. There's a reason that we like Darth Vader that goes beyond him simply being cool and memorable, though that certainly helps. It's because we relate to him. You see, Darth Vader's most iconic line to his son Luke about his parentage is more than simply about that line and the surprise it brings. In Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, which was the first Star Wars movie released in 1977, the main character Luke never got to know his own parents. He was raised by his aunt and uncle. And Luke gets told by Ben Kenobi, also known as the famous Obi-Wan Kenobi, who was an old man near where he grew up. He gets told that his father had been a great man, a Jedi, a friend to him, but that he was killed by somebody named Darth Vader. You all are very participatory today. I like it. The reveal that Luke's father, Anakin Skywalker, was in fact Darth Vader humanizes the character. you realize that he wasn't simply all evil all the time, but a person who used to be on the good side of the Jedis, which begs the question, if he could turn into a villain, what could make you turn into a villain? In fact, this is a common theme throughout Star Wars, particularly throughout the main 9 movies known as the Skywalker Saga, about being tempted by the dark side of the Force. The Force is a physical energy that binds all living things. Those who use the Force are able to harness it to move objects, to sense others' presence, feelings, and even thoughts sometimes. And you can use the Force to tell the future. And it's said that the Force seeks balance, with the positive side of the Force associated with good and the dark side associated with bad. A balance in the Force would promote peace and goodness in the universe. A disturbance would promote war and destruction. Throughout the original Star Wars movies, there's a recurring line warning Luke that he must not be tempted by the dark side of the Force. And you come to realize that part of this fear is because his father had once been on this good side. And he'd been turned to the dark side and become a person who sided with the Empire, an oppressive regime that sanctioned violence, destruction, and genocide. But how could that happen? And what's more, could it happen to you? What's interesting about Darth Vader is that though it's been shown that people don't like to be associated with negative traits, so many people want to be Darth Vader for Halloween, wear his face on their shirt. Even today, both Eric and Therese wanted to be Darth Vader. And so, there's something very compelling about him. So how did a good man become the face of evil in the Star Wars universe? And this story we eventually heard, right? In the late 90s and early 2000s, a series of 3 Star Wars movies came out that detailed Darth Vader's fall from hero to villain. Beginning when he was a boy, enslaved at the age of 9, where he's discovered to have a sensitivity to the Force. And so Obi-Wan Kenobi trains him to be a Jedi, despite the Jedi Council's warnings. And he's eventually consumed by grief when his mother dies, and ends up turning towards the dark side of the Force through manipulation and lies of an even greater villain, Palpatine. And eventually he becomes the villain Darth Vader that we all know and love. Now, these early movies are hated by many fans. What did you say? Because they're bad, Eric says. But you can't argue, at least I think you can't argue, about the fact that they added depth and nuance to Darth Vader's character. You get to see how Anakin Skywalker, who would become Darth Vader, lived through some pretty difficult childhood experiences, such as slavery, witnessing violence, and separation from his mother. It's not surprising to me that a man who experienced so much hardship and trauma in his early life would be drawn to a path of violence. In fact, there's this idea in psychology that traumatic experiences can lead to challenges like this later in life. And in Anakin's childhood, I counted at least 3 of these, what are called adverse childhood experiences, that are linked with poor outcome in later life. As an example, roughly 65% of the US population has at least one of these adverse childhood experiences in their background. In contrast, 97% of those in prison have one. This is according to the Compassion Prison Project. Anakin is a young man who is shown a path to power through his talents and the mentorship and influence of a powerful villain. And he is then pulled away from his pregnant wife and towards the evil dark side of the Force. Now, this is not exclusive to what Anakin becomes, but rather it serves to remind us that any of us may be one traumatic experience, one opportunity, one manipulative individual away from the dark side, towards evil. This question of evil and what causes it has been one Unitarian Universalists have struggled with. We don't collectively believe in any supernatural force like Satan or the devil who may work to tempt us towards the dark side. Furthermore, we believe that every person has inherent worth and dignity. We have far more to say about how humans are good than how we are inherently evil or sinful. And we believe when bad things happen, it's often due to circumstances outside of our control. We reassure people that they are good. We don't have a Christian view of sin to explain why we may act in evil ways. And for longer than Unitarians, Universalists have existed, the Universalists of our heritage have believed that everyone is ultimately saved, no matter what they do. So that means the Universalists, precursors to this very church, believed that Darth Vader, Palpatine, and any other villain, real or imagined, would go to heaven, right alongside us. But despite our teachings about good, we know that evil and cruelty exist. The circumstances of the Empire in Star Wars, despite the fantastical settings, are mirrors of things that have happened in our own world. Slavery, imprisonment, inhumane treatment, genocide. Sadly, they don't only exist in a world of fantasy, but have been and continue to be a real part of our world today. The Reverend Bill Schultz, who, in addition to being a former president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, was also previously the president of Amnesty International. And he had an up-and-close view to the acts we might describe as evil. And here's what he had to say about it. Along with imitations of goodness, evil lies coiled in almost every human heart, latent in almost every human enterprise. The goal is not to vanquish it, that is too much to hope for, but to temper it. And naming a phenomenon is always the first step towards taming, right? So evil is a part of us all. All of us can be tempted by that evil, by that dark side. One of the things I was struck by in watching Star Wars was how well it showed that particular struggle. Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader, but Luke Skywalker didn't. And that struggle is shown in later movies with Rey and Kylo Ren, descendants of the Skywalkers, in a sense, who moved in and out of their attraction to the dark side. And beyond that, the movies and stories and shows of Star Wars are full of people switching sides, moving from the bad to the good. There are stormtroopers, people who have been conditioned from birth to serve as soldiers for the Empire, who switch sides and end up helping the resistance. There are mercenaries who only care for themselves, who end up finding common cause and taking up work against the Empire. And there are those who begin good, who turn evil. Those who begin evil and turn good. I've always thought that the best way to understand evil, to even sympathize with those who do evil deeds, is to recognize the part of me that is capable of just the same. It's a scary thing to admit, but like Reverend Bill Schultz says, a necessary thing to admit. You see, I believe we are in danger when we try to draw a line separating us from them, no matter who the them is. When we pretend that we aren't made of the same stuff, hold the same humanity as those who commit atrocities. And we struggle to recognize when we, or even those we love, might fall towards the side of evil. And conversely, we don't recognize who try to help those who return to the side of good. Now, of course, I'm saying this like someone who believes he's on the good side, when it's not really as clear-cut as that. I like to believe I've done good in the world and that the good outweighs the bad, but I don't know that for sure. I've certainly participated in the most harmful aspects of capitalism, such as purchasing clothing and food without knowing where they come from, or worse, knowing where they come from and purchasing them anyways. Or you could say, perhaps I've done enough good to be able to consider myself good by serving you, my beloveds. Or is it just patting on myself on the back to feel like I've done a good thing? What I'm trying to say is that it's complicated. And we'll talk more about this next week. It is far from perfect. None of us can do this perfectly. And Star Wars has helped me see that. I used to believe that Star Wars didn't show a complicated relationship between good and evil. I was wrong about that. What the Force... I was wrong about a lot of things, but I was wrong about that. I was wrong. What the Force in Star Wars shows us is that someone with immense gifts, be they charisma, intelligence, knowledge, or even spirituality, the Force, can use those gifts in the service of what is good or what is bad. UU theologian Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker says, your gifts can be used to either bless or curse the world. Friends, right now, I'm feeling particularly struck by those who seem to have decided to use their gifts to curse the world. It seems like I can't turn on the TV or speak with a friend without hearing about another atrocity committed by humans who I profess to have inherent worth and dignity. And sometimes it's tempting to put everything in black and white in terms of good and bad. But what Star Wars teaches us is that these are not permanent states. That like Anakin Skywalker, you can fall and then you can realize that and you can return throughout the course of your life. We, of course, hope it happens before someone's on their deathbed, but it happens. Reverend Rosemary Bray McNatt, former president of the UU Scar King School for the Ministry, says, evil has its origins in the abandonment of hope and meaning among those who have lost or never known their core identity, children of the holy, siblings to all people on earth. When I hear that, I realize the vital role we play with each other. We can't abandon hope and meaning are most easily made in community. The Force isn't some cosmic idea that creates evil in someone. It's the other way around. It can be used for evil, just like any of our gifts. So I would argue that our job here in this community, as we work to bring our love beyond walls, is to recognize that evil comes from a lack of hope and a lack of meaning, and that it comes from that which is within each of us. And our best antidote to that is compassion as we find people who might move between the forces of evil and good, for it has the capacity to be within us all. So that's what I got out of Star Wars. I actually think this project made me a fan. And there are a million more lessons in this epic tale, just as there are so many in all of the scriptures that have been created by humans in this world. So I ask, let us exercise the Force for good in our lives and recognize that we are all close to the dark. And just as those who are close to the dark can move, we all can move towards that good side of the Force. May it be so. Amen. And may the Force be with you.